So the government says National Cabinet and our governments around the nation are on a war footing to recalibrate the vaccine rollout. What does it mean? How has it been received? Let's bring in our political editor, Andrew Clennell. Andrew, I think one thing it does say, it says that the PM knows he's got a challenge ahead of him here.
Absolutely right, Kieran. A war footing, as Kieran just put it, or the government's putting it, and twice weekly National Cabinet meetings announced by the PM this morning. The first admission from Scott Morrison that he has a serious problem with the vaccine rollout, with this language about how he is going to move forward on it, and that he needs to do something, maybe mass vaccination centres for over 50s. Here is what the PM's office gave journalists last night. He said, there are serious challenges we need to overcome caused by patchy international vaccine supplies, changing medical advice and a global environment of need caused by millions of COVID-19 cases and deaths. There are problems with the program that we need to solve to ensure more Australians can be vaccinated safely and more quickly. So, having wanted his government to own the program initially with its $4 billion investment, Scott Morrison now wants to do it with the states. But he's got some work to do to re-establish trust. A state official has told me this morning that, and I quote, every health minister in the country is pissed off, unquote, with the federal government over a perceived lack of information over the past few months around vaccinations, and that National Cabinet is now being seen as a forum to diffuse political problems for the federal government. When Scott Morrison announced that 20 million more Pfizer doses had been secured last Friday, it apparently was only conveyed at the very end of a National Cabinet meeting to the Premiers a few minutes before the announcement, when the Thursday night AstraZeneca blood clots announcement was made. A health minister's phone hookup was pushed back from 5:30 that evening till after the media conference announcement. Basically, the states feel cut out. The PM says here he's discussed with one Premier, I think we can presume it's Gladys Berejiklian, about mass vaccinations for 50 to 70-year-olds in June and July.
We have a very strong GP network now of over 4,000 that we can work those vaccines through. But equally, there's the option to work, and I've discussed this with at least one Premier, about how mass vaccination could be an option earlier, say in June or July, for those over 50 groups that are in the balance of the population, and it's a very large number. And there will be vaccines, we believe, to support that type of activity.
So federal, state, mass vaccination centres in June, perhaps. Here are some ideas for the PM if he is looking for them. How about giving responsibility to a senior military leader in a multi-agency effort to roll out the vaccine, set up vaccination centres and bite the bullet and build an mRNA plant so we can manufacture a vaccine other than AstraZeneca. Throw tens of billions at it, because it will be worth it if we can get up with the rest of the world on the speed of vaccinations and reopen the international borders. There are internal rumblings in the federal government that the PM is following the advice of Health Department Chief Brendan Murphy, who is okay with a slow and steady approach to rolling out the vaccine with no COVID present in the country at the moment. Scott Morrison's announcement of more National Cabinet meetings, I have to say, has been consistent with one pattern of behaviour over the past year and a bit when dealing with problems from the PM. If in doubt, announce a task force. Got a problem? Announce a consultation group. On IR, on manufacturing, on COVID recovery, on reopening state borders, on quarantine, on every single issue, a task force or committee seems to be the answer. Here's a montage of some of the various committees, task forces and consulting groups Scott Morrison has announced in the last 16 months.
What we've resolved to do is to form a national cabinet. The National Security Committee Task Force on COVID-19.
Christian Porter will lead a new, time-bound, dedicated process, bringing employers, industry groups, employee representatives and government to the table.
We also agreed today that there would be a nationwide review of hotel quarantine. These appointments will be further enhanced by the establishment of a new cabinet task force to drive my government's agenda in response to these key issues involving women's equality.
Yes, the Prime Minister for task forces, reviews and inquiries. Apparently a large part of National Cabinet, according to one rather unkind state official, is Scott Morrison talking, and this official said not really listening that well. Richard Marles, the Deputy Labor leader, commented on this latest announcement by Mr Morrison this morning.
Well, I think this is the standard play from the Prime Minister now. I mean, what he's doing here is trying to spread responsibility, spread political risk, point fingers in different directions, pretend it's not all about him. But the truth of the matter is that it is. This is a moment where we actually need to see the Prime Minister stand up. The federal government is responsible for procuring the vaccines that need to be rolled out in this country. That's the fundamental question here. I don't think talking to state premiers is going to see us procure more of the vaccine. The government has completely botched this, and they really need to be explaining to the Australian people, the Prime Minister needs to be explaining to the Australian people what the plan is to actually get more vaccines here so that the country can be vaccinated.
Richard Marles there on the ABC this morning.